Today, I'm sitting down with Mo, the founder of Cavala. Cavala is an AI robotic startup based in San Francisco that specializes in supporting the world's largest warehouses with their autonomous forklifts. So, Mo, I'd love to just kind of kick off the conversation and ask, in your own words, what is the goal of Cavala?
Absolutely, James. We dream about moving any cargo around the earth in hours instead of the months that it takes today. And we believe that the only limitation to achieving that goal is just human imagination, and that there are ways you can supersonically move really, really heavy objects around the earth that are just not being built right now. And so on our way there, we're building autonomous forklifts to support world's most innovative logistics companies.
Okay, that's super interesting. Look, my background is not in logistics at all, but when I think about moving goods around the world, obviously forklifts are a key component of that. But I imagine a crucial and large, but still probably like relatively small portion of that with ships and planes, etc. Is the goal of Cavalla then to move beyond just forklifts, or do you see yourselves, 10 years from now as the autonomous forklift company, or is there more down the road?
Yeah, so we want to be the futuristic logistics company. And so beyond forklifts, like we dream about autonomous trucks, maglev trains, airships, and all of these like futuristic modes of travel that will become a thing. And for us, like, we don't even think of ourselves a lot as like, robotics or like how the tech is structured, but mostly as like, what's the purpose and how are we able to move the world forward by cutting the time that you can move anything around the world.
Super interesting. And then why forklifts as the starting place for Cavala then?
Absolutely. In terms of warehouse automation, when you look at different solutions available to clients, there are actually solutions that are more automated than autonomous forklifts by a good margin. Like there are ASRS systems that make giant grid, and they're able to basically give you anything you want from that grid on demand. But what we realized is that these businesses are extremely dynamic, very changing based off of customer demand, the newest geopolitical situation in the world. Like I feel like logistics operators are the best political analyzers at the same time because everything could change their business. And so in that volatile market, you can't just lock yourself into really strict trade-offs, and that's what an ASRS does. You put in huge amounts of money up front, you get
And
locked
Mo,
in.
for our non kind of logistics or robotics listeners, what is an ASRS system?
Yeah, so the ASRS systems are basically these gigantic systems that make a grid of, let's say, your pallets or boxes. It's like automated sortation of huge numbers of these items. And so in terms of like how automated or how space efficient a warehouse is, it's like really, really hard to beat that sort of system and structure. But what we realize is basically like those fluctuations and changes in how the business needs to be run makes it so that for the vast, vast majority of customers, getting locked into specific trade-offs is not great. And you want very versatile, flexible solution that can work with any type of good, that can move things in any layout and basically adapt to new workflows and new needs that customers have year over year.
Yeah, awesome. And I don't know much about your background, but like, why did you start Cavala? Was your background in the logistics space? Like, how did you come across this opportunity?
Yeah, so in previous life, I worked at a robotics welding company, so that was a great introduction into robotics after, being just like a tinkerer in middle school. And after that, I did a consulting job to help BHP work on their logistics system in mines. And honestly, like that job was just to prove to my parents I can get a big company job. Like I would have never ended up there. But the amazing value that I got out of that job was just like being on the other side of the table from robotics companies and trying to evaluate different systems and realizing like, man, like what they're marketing on their website or what everybody in robotics ecosystem keeps talking about is so different than what the customer needs. And the customer needs are like so simple, but I feel like there's this extreme tendency to want to build very attractive, sexy tech instead of like what's very boring and mundane and making it very reliable and high performance.
Yeah, interesting. And then I guess like if I was on the other side of the table from you and I'm a warehouse operations manager or whoever your buyer may be, like what is the sell to me, or like the the quote unquote I think you said like is pretty simple. Like what is that simple sell to me?
Absolutely. I think like, the lazy sell, it's kind of just like, oh, you have this many people or you can't fill this many jobs, right? And we're able to get those tasks done for you. But I would say like what gets us very excited is coming in and saying, hey, here are the things that you can't do because you're getting pulled in 100 different directions and you don't even get to basically, let's say, like fill up your second shift or even think about having a third shift. But when we come into your facility and we're able to cover like 2 workflows and make them very reliable and high throughput, then you can think about how I can reallocate the labor I have, how can I spend more time trying to get the customers that I can't get to, and how can I like utilize my facility at the highest utilization possible. And
Interesting.
Yeah, allowing our customers to think bigger about their business past the limits that they've hit today, which is like spending a lot of time hiring and trying to retain people, spending a lot of time trying to like, because the labor they have is such a scarce resource that you have to do a lot of planning around how to create different shifts, how to allocate them the best efficient way possible.
So it's not just a cost thing in terms of, okay, we'll bring automation into our warehouse and drive down costs, but actually like how can we increase revenues and throughputs by having more efficiency on the kind of warehouse floors?
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, like you don't hire a forklift driver because they can only drive forklifts. Sometimes yes, but a lot of times like forklift driver does some checks over what pallet it is, does barcode scanning, does some paperwork. It could come help you do other tasks, right? So I think the more exciting opportunity is always how can you grow the business way faster and way better than what it's capable of today.
Yeah, interesting. And what is the state of the industry today? I mean, like, I have a friend who worked on the kind of stretch product at Boston Dynamics, and I know that they did some work with kind of Gap and DHL, obviously a slightly different product. Amazon, doing a lot with robotics. Where is the industry at today with automation?
Yeah, today I would say there are a lot of companies that are doing good work. The issue that we've seen again and again a lot of companies run into is getting into pilots and then spending a lot of years just trying to get past that pilot, but the adoption is very, very slow. And the main reason for that is those like foundational problems are not fully solved, like reliability, making something very easy to maintain and run year over year, and how fast you're able to move things, and are you able to like match some level of throughput close to a human being at a very safe state. And so I would say like there's a lot of great pilot stories unfortunately, like the mainstream adoption has not been there. And so I'm really excited to see if in the next 5 years we're able to crack that.
And do you think that's something that like Cavalla has an edge over, or do you think it's more of kind of the state of the industry as automation improves? Actually, we'll see kind of a rising tide lift all boats, or could Cavalla fall into that same trap with lots of nice pilots, but actually, not converting? Yeah.
We can obviously fall into the same traps. I would say, like, from the beginning, what we did was take a lot of different technical trade-offs to make sure we prioritize reliability as the North Star, and then afterwards how flexible and adaptable the system is. Because today, like, you can get systems that can move a pallet from the same height from one specific place, go a straight line, drop it off somewhere else. And so we would never be able to like compete with that sort of solution with companies that have been around for like 30 years, right? That's kind of like the Kuka arms of our industry, right? Like they just work, they're amazing, but like the number of places that are able to have a good use for them are like also very, very limited. And so for us, we wanted to rethink the autonomy stack and think about how can you have a purely visual navigation system that's able to adapt to the layout changes, the changes in any of the objects surrounding you, and still have very good fail-safe mechanisms to be safe.
Yeah, interesting. And how receptive do you find the kind of leaders and buyers in these organizations when it comes to robot deployment in their warehouses? Are they kind of burnt by past experience? Are they very excited? What's the kind of vibes?
Absolutely. I would say there's definitely, like scars from failed deployments in a lot of companies that would be the early adopters. But what we realize is that there are also a lot of companies that, pardon me, they're very, very open, and the reason for it is that like their business could just be transformed if something like that truly works. In places where like labor shortages are huge, or what you're moving is really, really high value, we've seen customers just like go a very, very extensive place to make something work. And I think then again, like a lot of our technical trade-offs have been done to make sure we cater these sort of customers instead of trying to build something for everyone, which is way harder.
And in your conversations with these people, it's more of a value driver for them actually labor shortage, because I've seen that's a big thing. I think like the construction industry, and I'm sure it's the similar in warehouses as well. Is that more of a value driver than cost? Like how do those two kind of play together?
Yeah, I mean, cost, as I mentioned, like it is part of the conversation, but I think like the more exciting part is trying to rephrase this and think of it as how much of their time can we open up, because like 1 hour of time for extremely busy operator could be worth like millions in extra revenue, and it could be a new project they could start and go get permits for that they didn't have the time and resources for before, versus trying to nickel and dime the next person they would be hiring. And
yeah,
so,
interesting. And no, go on.
Yeah, and so like when you're thinking about like cost cutting, I think that's one of the mistakes we made in the initial conversations, right? Like trying to like set our prices at the lowest place possible because we thought that was the attraction. But in reality, I think you would rather go after like a more complex, harder to deal with workflow, get it working really, really reliably and try to charge customer like way higher than the hourly wage they would pay someone else because now they can go expand their business to another shift.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I know I was reading a kind of blog post with you guys, or perhaps it was on your website, and you emphasized continuous human oversight, which I'm sure is very important in these environments. But and we're probably a very long way from a fully autonomous future, I'm sure, without any human oversight. But what's the role for traditional forklift operators? Are they becoming fleet managers? I guess what's the role for humans in a future where Cavalla is powering not just forklifts but logistics?
Absolutely. I think the incredible thing about someone like a forklift operator is that first of all, like they're really like it's a lot of the common sense things they're really good at, right? Like because at the end of the day, like logistics is not a like very complex business. It's a hard business, but the premise of it is super simple. How can you move things safely, faster, and more efficiently? And so I've just seen people who are really in tune with what they're doing, how things are getting moved in a warehouse, how to do things better and better, and how to, like, sometimes you see the things they do with, like, their forks are incredible. And so in a digital world where they don't have to be driving forklifts, I think you can see them anywhere from, like, maintaining units to basically like a lot of jobs that we can't even imagine today. Especially I think with LLMs being the great equalizer here, like these sort of people can pick up any skill set and basically become as effective as an engineer today.
Yeah, yeah, super interesting. How far away do you think we are from warehouses? And when I'm talking about warehouses here, I'll talk about more dynamic environments, more diverse environments where forklifts typically operate, rather than the kind of ASRS system style warehouses. But how far away are we from fully autonomous warehouses?
I think there are obviously like other tasks that are being done in a warehouse that I don't have as much of an insight into how long it could take to like automate very dexterous tasks, for example, like taping over a box, etc. But I would say on the topic of forklifts, like every 3-4 months, we just see one part of our stack get such a big upgrade, and we're like, man, life is so much easier than like 6-7 months ago. And so my prediction is that in the next 4 or 5 years, we will get to fully automated forklifts that you basically do not have to have a single intervention for.
Wow. And when you say like every few months a part of the kind of stack gets easier, what's driving that? Is that just you guys collecting more data to train forklifts on? Is that kind of novel insights? What is driving that?
Those changes I was referring to kind of like the outside sort of off the shelf things we buy becoming way more powerful. Like
Okay.
NVIDIA releasing another new version of the Jetson units, the camera. There could be like another company that builds way better cameras at a great price point. We were able to cut the price on another one of our safety lidars, right? Like, and then when you do that, it's not just cost cutting, but it's also now that I'm able to use more of it if I wanted to and cover like another workflow that was impossible before.
And then what are the blockers then between where we are today and that 5-year future where everything is autonomous? Is it the better hardware? Is it the kind of new Jetsons coming out? Is it the kind of less expensive but better LiDAR cameras? Like what's missing?
Absolutely. One of my pet peeves in robotics is like everybody's trying to find sort of bottlenecks, and they're like, oh, data is the bottleneck, and if we only solve this, everything is will be automated. But I think in reality, it's like every month, um, everybody on our team is working on something differently, right? So it's like there's never like a single bottleneck. Depending on the time, you have to just go through big problem, another big problem, another big problem, and then you kind of like do a circle where it's like electronics, software, hardware, electronics, software, hardware, electronics, um, and so it's really hard to say like what specific area um, is what separates us from here there. But I would say one overlooked place is just having more teams and more companies in warehouses, and that would open up the ability for other teams and companies to come in. Because, for example, like when we go into a warehouse and we're able to have access to a lot of the workflows within the warehouse, we can then have like very good APIs for another company to come collaborate with us. And so like I think a lot of the data that used to be siloed in these like very old ERP systems that had no incentive to open it up for anyone else could become way more accessible to other people.
Yeah,
And so that sort of like
really
robot coordination will definitely become like way easier, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, really interesting. When you guys started, I remember reading the kind of first blog post, and it was talking about how you were initially retrofitting forklifts and then deploying them in the warehouse. Now, when we speak, it's more about actually building your own forklifts. If I'm right in saying, like, what caused that switch?
Absolutely. I think the big insight is like if you wanted to build a forklift for autonomy versus human driver, you would just make so many different choices and so many different trade-offs, and that wasn't clear to us until we started retrofitting a lot of units and realized, wow, like there are just things that you can't do, and the way that a computer looks at the world is so much more differently. Like one like very specific example is like no forklift driver gets on the forklift and is like, oh, I have to turn 23 degrees this way. um, and so because of those differences, I would say the type of sensors, the types of places that you would want sensors in are very different.
And why can't someone who hasn't worked with forklifts in any capacity, but like, why can't you just put the cameras in these places, for example, or connect the control system to the wheel of the forklift? Like, why does that actually need to be custom built? And I'm not sure how much of this is your secret sauce or how much you could talk about, but when I think about a traditional forklift that I'll see in a warehouse, like, are you able to speak through any of the kind of key design changes that you made that just like fundamentally didn't work with the old system?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's not that you can't do it. It's just that if you had, let's say, one sensor to do that for, right, that would have been fine. Your reliability might have like come down a little bit. But when you're trying to chase 9 and 9 and 9 of reliability, each one of these sensors you're putting in a place that doesn't have a good bracket, the wiring is not ideal in terms of where it can be routed, in terms of how it's getting to like the main unit. These sort of reliability issues add up, and next thing you know, it's like there's no amount of software that could solve your reliability issues.
Was there any like aha moments where obviously I know your co-founder Victor as well, where you just like sat down together and just like, okay, we need to stop retrofitting forklifts and start building them ourselves?
Yeah, totally. I mean, funny enough, like I think we kind of came to it on the same day, and then I kind of gave him a call, and I was like, "Hey," and he was like, as soon as I started, he was like, "I'm so glad you brought that up because I was thinking about that too." And yeah, I think like all of this just goes back to the fact that, like, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but reliability is so important and it's so hard to get right. And I think that human mind is not equipped to think about events that happen like a week, month, years down the line versus like what you can see right in front of you. And that's why I think like building a unit meant to be reliable. It's just a totally different story than something that you can make good demos for.
Yeah, interesting. And I imagine that, I think about building a forklift from the ground up. Like, what does that actually involve? Are you kind of like, are you building that in the US? Are you manufacturing these yourselves? Like, what's the process actually look like? Because I imagine it's very, very different from just buying off the shelf hardware and retrofitting it into an existing vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. It took a very long time to get there, and I wish I could say, like we're manufacturing everything in the U.S. because it's something that I am passionate about bringing, like different parts of manufacturing to the U.S. But I would say in this case, like it's kind of like a commoditized piece of metal, or at least like the basic piece of equipment is a design that's been done multiple times before. And so like our BOM would have been 3 to 4x higher if we wanted to do it in the US. And so we basically have about like 9-10 different vendors in China, and I would say like each one of those vendors you can just kind of go in, send an email and get that product in. I think our value is in basically like combining the product from these vendors and making sure everything from our assembly to electronics to software is cohesively working together.
Yeah, super, super interesting. Coming up to my final questions, but obviously you spoke about, okay, there's no kind of silver bullets when it comes to automation in factory settings, and every month the team are working on something new. But what is the one kind of frontier in maybe forklifts specifically that's the hardest to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. The shelf stacking reliably and high throughput hasn't been done at all. And like I've seen like drivers do it, I've tried to do it, and you're like, how can humans possibly do this? It's like going up like tens of feet and sometimes even like double stack into the air, right? Like if you think about sort of like mechanical engineering that goes behind just making that possible, and how much like a giant few ton pallet is like shaking on top of the fork and you have to put it precisely in one place. I think it's just incredible what humans can do. Like human perception system is just top notch.
That's super cool. And then just my final question to finish it off. I mean, like 5 years from now, if Cavalla follows the I guess like growth and plans that you as a team have, like what are you guys doing 5 years from now? Is that still forklifts? Have you expanded? Can you tease what's next on the pipeline if you know?
Absolutely. I think if we're able to convince specific states to have like one maglev line for cargo, it'll definitely be that, because I think that sort of train technology is something that we're like really, really passionate about, and it can also like change the world in so many exciting different ways. And it fits in right with what we're doing today and the customers we're working with, and the sort of environments that we're getting familiar with.
Awesome. Well, Mo, look, I won't keep you any longer, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. And yeah, I'm really excited to keep watching Cavalla and see the future that you as a team are building. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, James.
Cheers.